And we're off. Okay. So, hi, Sandy. It's
Hi,
great
how are
to
you?
see you.
You
I'm
too.
fantastic. It's great to see you. Um, I'm so excited that you're on. I know you're really busy, and we've kind of hit and miss each other a couple of times, and I've been trying to get you on for the longest time, and I'm so delighted to have you on this evening. Um, Hiya, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Not too bad. And yourself?
Um, I'm great. I'm absolutely great. Um, just before we start, I know I said it to you a while ago. I'm hoping. I know you saw the podcast I did with Hans,
Hmm.
and a few orbs appeared, and I'm hoping beyond hope that we can emulate something like that this evening. Um, I think it'd be really cool. I think it'd be, as I said before, once is lucky, twice is not. You know, if it happens a second time, and I think it would be a great hello from our friends above. And it doesn't kind of really work that way. You can't just, people think, well, you call them in, and you can kind of invite them, and on their own steam, they'll either show up or they won't, and that's kind of, that's the way it works. It's not, you can't just kind of click your fingers and away they come. That it just doesn't work like that. So I'm hoping beyond hope that we'll be able to emulate something like that this evening. Um, so just to start, just to um, tell the people, the viewers, a little bit about you. Um, excuse me. You've had some amazing experiences, and you've had an amazing life as such. I'm really excited to talk to you about spirituality because I'm terribly uninformed. I should be a lot more informed, and uh, I'm not, and I'm hoping you'll fill in a few blanks, and I'm hoping if you just introduce yourself, like what you do. I know you're a healer. I know you heal people. I know in a lot of different ways, and I know you have your own business. And by all means, absolutely 100% give that a plug. And anybody that's listening, Sandy is an amazing healer. Spirituality, physically, psychologically, all that's going on, she can do everything. So I highly recommend her. If you could give yourself a little introduction there, Sandy, and we'll kick off.
Well, my name is Sandy and I live in Portlaoise. And I've been running my business Soul Blossom for 20 odd years. I specialize in natural fertility and I'm hugely successful. I have people from all over Ireland, UK, Wales, Scotland that come over to me.
Wow.
Um, I have been hands-on healer for I'd say since I was about 16. I come from a very long line of visionary ancestors, so it's been in my blood for centuries.
So what are visionary ancestors?
So I've had herbalists, I've had psychics, healers, seers. My line would come from seership, so
Okay.
it's kind of gaining information and insights through vision. And that's where my connection to the ETs comes into play. So I would have a lot of visions, especially at nighttime when I sleep. I would have, really incredible, vivid dreams where I'm having conversations. I'm on ships. I'm on different planets, and that's been happening
Wow.
since I was a child.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've vivid memories of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I write down every one of my for a long time I thought it was just dreams and I just had a really vivid imagination. But then the ETs started to tell me things that would happen in later years that I had documented. I put it online. I had told my clients about it. I'd emailed people. Um, One was 2020, the pandemic. So I was telling people 10
Wow.
years previous to that that a virus was going to come and hit the earth and all different types of things from war to people having to leave their homes and come, abroad to live in other countries. And yeah, so I've told a lot of people about that. A lot of my posts would get taken down on Facebook or Instagram.
All
So I
right.
started emailing people instead um,
Okay.
to tell them. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Um, so you were involved. Was your mother or dad spiritual?
I wouldn't say spiritual. What I would say is they were very aware. They were very connected to the spirit world, especially my maternal grandmother. So I lived with my maternal grandmother till I was 5, and she passed away. But she would have kind of taught me a lot of things. She was a herbalist as well, and she would read palms and different things like that. And she was the local healer as well. So I kind of picked it up from there. My granny always said, "You're not going to be like everybody else."
All
You know,
right, okay.
and I wasn't, and I never have been. So I kind of go along to the beat of my own drum. So yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, that's the best, absolutely the best way to be. So you're really involved in. When I say spirituality, is that the right word to encompass kind of everything, as in like, say, palm reading, visions, the solstices, all that. Is that the right word?
Well, I think, say, spirituality personally, obviously, is the connection to the self, to really knowing the self, to remembering the self. Um, and then I suppose you can put an umbrella term on spirituality, because once we get to know ourselves truly, we get to awaken our gifts, and that's where all the other things come into play. But it's a deep inner connection to one's own soul and the remembrance of where they came from, really. You know,
Okay. Okay.
all the
And when you say remembering where they came from, are you talking about a past life, or are you talking about another existence in another realm, in another dimension, on another planet, or
Yeah, well, like I'm trained in past life regression, and so I've worked with many people who've gone back to a past life. I've worked with people who've come from different planets. So yeah, it's interesting, and yeah, it's highly creative as well, because when we start using our creative energies, we're able to tap into who we kind of truly are, our imprint of why we're here as well as humans. So.
okay? That's interesting that you say that you've done past life regression, because that's something I think I'd like to do at some stage, myself.
It's really interesting. Like a lot of the past life regression I do would be people who say have fears in life, whether they have fear of birds, they have fear of leaving the house without having a packed lunch. It could be like, what they would see as an irrational fear actually could have come from one of their past lives or something that happened in a past life. Yeah, it's incredible. I've heard many, many stories, because it really is the client that echoes back the story to you, and then I just have to make sense of it for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 So, excuse me. So, um, is there anything else you haven't covered in the spirituality? So past life regression. You're a fertility specialist.
Yeah.
What types of healing do you do?
I do all different types of healing. So really, it's, again, umbrella term, energy healing. There's all different types of frequencies. There is an energy that I'm trained in called Rahani, and it actually comes. We beam it from the Pleiades, the Andromedans, the Arcturians. So I'm
Okay.
really connected to the Pleiadians. I have since I was a little girl, and I've had a few people had incredible, incredible experiences in this room with 3 Palladians, to the fact that the speaker got all staticky. And I just happened to say, if there are ETs in this room, can you give us a sign? And the lady's name, who I was channeling the energy for, came on over the radio in a robotic type of language.
Right.
Two of us lost it. She jumped up off the plinth. I was like, I didn't think that was going to happen. And she was like, did I just hear my name? And I'm like, yep, you just heard your name. And it was real robotic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we heard this static, this really high static frequency. And I actually had to turn off the speakers because it was actually deafening.
Wow.
So she still comes back, but she's very, very connected to ETs as well. So
Okay.
not surprised it happened to her.
Okay. Okay. So, See, when I met you originally, it's I don't know what it'd be 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe something like that. Excuse me. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and you called to the house here, and if, I know a few called that evening, and we were hoping to have an experience, maybe a CE5 experience, but it was again it was very overcast, and we didn't have a lot of success. Um, was that the night that the lights started flickering up at the gate? Was that night? No,
Yeah,
was
yeah,
it?
it was.
Um, because like those lights, and just to tell the story to the audience, um, we didn't really see anything moving in the sky, and it was quite overcast. But up at my gate, the front gate is probably 50 yards from the front door of the house. It's a long enough driveway, and we're all sitting. I lit a fire at the front of the driveway, and we're all sitting around the fire in the chairs. And 50 yards away, maybe, or say certainly 100 feet away, you have the two front gates,
Yeah,
and on each pillar, I have a light hung, and it's just they're simple solar light, but they're operated. So if you walk past them, they light up. And we're sitting down in a ring, and the next thing that after the lights started kind of coming on, and I'm looking at it, I wonder is it? I thought initially maybe it was bugs or something flying over it. But then they started kind of flashing on and then off and then on and then stay on and then it flashed and then off and it was like it was very like as I said. Do you remember I said something has to be passing that to be turning that on because they're motion sensors like, and we
yeah.
couldn't see anything obviously, and like that was very strange. But that was really the only thing that happened. But I remember then they went off, and then I walked up towards the gate, and then when I got within 7 or 8 feet of them, then they switched on again. But they switched on together,
Yeah.
whereas they were coming on and off like that individually. So, like that was very strange, and like I mean, there was 7 or 8 of us there that night, and we all saw it.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
whether it was physically an ET passing it, or whether they were just using
I
a
know.
bit of ET magic or technology or something to play with them. I mean, whatever. But I mean, something was messing with them.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I have a lot of lights out the garden, and so that's where I do my meditations when I'm stargazing, and the exact same thing happens. All of my lights flicker on and off, but I always get this feeling there's something here or there's something watching me. And the other thing that happens as well, because I live in an estate, animals come out of nowhere. I had an owl one day perch on the side, and I was just looking at him like, is that an owl sitting on my fence?
well, you know what they say about the ETs. Sometimes they appear as animals, so you don't get shocked or frightened. And that was in the movie Disclosure Day, which I really want to talk to you about later on. I'm really looking forward but I've so many questions. We've so much stuff to cover. Um, so you've had a massive, and you see, I don't know why I got the impression that you kind of started out spiritual, and you're doing the healings and palm readings and astrology and all that stuff, you know, all that like amazing stuff with spirituality, and then the ETs kind of come into your life, but they've been with you all along.
Yeah.
So you reckon they're joined? It's they're, I won't say in the same pot, but there's a connection between spirituality and the ETs.
Yeah, I do. And you know what? I think one of the things as well that I've always kind of pondered on, I think the more open-hearted you are and more empathetic you are, the easier the connection. That's what I've always found. And I have hyper empathy and I can really feel people's emotions. That's why I'm
Yeah.
a healer. And so I can feel spirit and I can feel when energies are around me all the time. But I think they can connect better through that empathetic state.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too. I'm empathic as well.
Yeah.
Um, and I would agree with you. Yeah, I think that is definitely it's certainly one of the keys, if not the main key.
Mhm.
So wait, can you remember when did you have your first extraterrestrial experience? Because I know, like, I mean, there's so much stuff, like some of the stories you've told me, and you know, so fire away. I'm so excited to talk to you about it.
No, well, I suppose as a kid, I always had sleep paralysis, and the dreams were always the same. I was on either on a ship or I was standing with a what we call the greys, and I'd
Okay.
wake absolutely terrified. I'd be screaming. My granny wouldn't know what to do with me. So that continued. So I went into care when I was
Roughly what age were you? Sorry.
your grand. Yes, so from about I'd say four. It started about four, and then it kind of increased and increased and increased until I was about 10 or 11. So I started drawing spirals, and I used to get in trouble the whole time in school for drawing spirals. And I had an obsession with tornadoes. You know, when you just I just kept drawing them everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. And then I started drawing aliens and alien ships, and that's when the letters started coming home from school to like, yeah, it's like Santa. Yeah, I nearly failed my junior cert because on every single page of my junior cert exams there was an alien. I drew an alien or I drew spirals, and I
Oh, I
got
love
kicked.
it.
All yeah, I got kicked out of my accounting exam because I was drawing stuff I wasn't supposed to be drawing. But I used to get really drawn into the spirals, and I used to just lose all track of time, and I'd just be spiraling and spiraling, and yeah, so, and then like if I was sick, I used to have what you know you'd call fever dreams.
Okay.
Yeah, so I remember one time I woke up and I was about 11. I was really, really sick. I had a proper flu and I could see this thing at the end of my bed. And I got up and I walked over to it and it was this little small alien, a grey alien. And sure, I screamed because I didn't, and it ran into the cupboard. So my mum and dad came in and they were like, "What are you screaming?" I said, "There's an alien in the cupboard. There's an alien in the cupboard." And since that experience, I started sleepwalking.
All right. And do
So
they look in the cupboard?
they looked in the cupboard and it wasn't there.
Wasn't
And
there? Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't near the cupboard for weeks because I thought there was an alien in it.
And do you have a vivid memory of it? Like when you said that it was a grey, like was it like a projection of a grey, or was it did it actually look, solid like?
Oh, it was solid. It was definitely solid because just the way that it ran and the way that it kind of crawled in and scuttled in behind the cupboard. I had these big antique cupboards and the door was half open and it just kind of scuttled in. And yeah, I was terrified. But I started sleepwalking after that. And what would happen is I would get up in the middle of the night and I'd start wandering around. And sometimes my mom would say that I would speak a language she couldn't understand.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
I was always as a child mesmerized by the sky, by the stars. And, you know, I lived in a 17th century home. So it was a real, you know, an old house.
Yeah.
Um, it had spirits of its own, but we had this flat roof. And so we could actually get out on the roof. And this was a four-story building. And my dad used to let me like look at the stars with the telescope on the flat roof. And I used to be just like, I come from there. I
Brilliant.
always used to say it, yeah. I was like, I come from the stars, like, and I used to say it in school the whole time, so they nicknamed me Alien Girl.
Oh God. Right.
That was my
Okay.
nickname in school, Alien Girl.
That was tough though, because like that, like back then it would really have been a taboo
Oh yeah,
subject.
yeah,
Excuse me. Like as I like in the last podcast I did, I spoke about my own experiences, and that the hardest part for me was not being able to talk about it.
yeah,
And I try and talk to some people, and very few people were open to it. Or if they were open to it and did believe you, it was too big for them, and they didn't want to. Oh yeah, okay, okay, bye, 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 and they just wanted to shut down the conversation. They
yeah,
didn't want to keep it going. Um, so psychologically, I found that very hard. You
yeah,
know, but I think part of the reason I got visited and continue to get visited, and there was so many visits, is that I think I was psychologically strong enough for it.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think they were aware that they knew it, like, because in my experience, they won't give you anything more than you can cope with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, because I did go through a phase for about 6 months where I thought I was losing my marbles,
Yeah.
and I was like, I couldn't deal with it. And while during that 6 months, I never got a visit. And then I finally calmed down, and it settled with me that look, it's real. I'm not being harmed. It's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah.
Then they started coming back, and then as the weeks went on, they really were coming back, and like it was like nightly and daily, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and it was all sorts of stuff. But okay, so yeah, so that's what I found hard to deal with. Like, had you people you could talk to, or how did you deal with it? Like, as you were getting, say, from a teenager onwards.
Well, funny enough, I had a dream and I was told that they were going to reveal themselves to my family. So one night I was at a family gathering in this little tiny village in the mountains called Knockanana.
Okay.
And on the way back, at the time my dad had, do you remember the lagunas? It had three
Yeah,
parts.
yeah, yeah,
Was always in the boot looking up at the stars because it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And my dad had a few too many Southern Comforts and lemonade. So he said, we'll bypass the major roads and we'll go through the back roads. So we're going through the back roads anyway. And I remember my dad said, who on earth is bringing a lorry down this tiny little road? And so he started kind of like putting the brakes on the car, and then the car cut out. And then the light that we thought was a lorry went up over the trees. It came over, and sure, I was looking at the back with my head up, and I saw it. It was a triangle shape. I always say it looked like the suite from, the green suite from the Quality Streets.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Over and went over, and no matter how hard, my dad couldn't actually turn the key of the car over. And then it went over, and then it just phew, gone, and then the car came back on. And sure, I was having a conniption. I'm like, it's aliens, it's aliens. So my mother tried to gaslight me and tell me that the experience never happened. But that night, I couldn't sleep. And my foster brother came up and said, Sandy, it was real. We all saw it. Just don't tell Mum
Outstanding.
I told you. Because she was
Brilliant.
like, she won't sleep all night. She's going to be talking about it in school. And, you know,
She doesn't need any encouragement.
she doesn't. No, she doesn't.
Brilliant, brilliant, fantastic. Um, uh, I want to talk to you about you're an extremely earthy person,
Mm,
and I would say I'm an earthy person as well. But I think you in most ways you're me on steroids. So if I'm earthy, you're Mother Earth. You're super earthy. Well, you've had some experiences in the woods.
yes.
Tell
And
us about that.
I should say, I showed you the pictures.
You did, and with your permission, when we're finished this conversation, I'd love to put them up so people can see because they're amazing. They're
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
So,
So
sorry, go on. Sorry.
yeah, I had a vision 2 nights beforehand, and I had said to the Palladium, I'm like, why can I never see you with my eyes? Why do you always come to me in my dreams? I said, I don't want any more dreams. I want to see you. And I was like, I'm taking no for an answer kind of thing. And then a couple of days later, it was a lovely sunny day. And I said to my partner, I'm really drawn to a particular part of our local woods. Let's go there. There's a lot of history there in Stradbally here in County Laois. And he was just taking random photos of me. I was trying to get the sun to go through my hands and take a cool photo. And he says to me, Sandy, there's something weird coming up on the photographs. And I said, oh, it's probably just the beam from the sun. But when I looked at it, I went, oh no, what on earth is that? And it is what looks like about on my back, this size, a blue being. You can see the whole
Yeah,
body, you can see the suit, you can see its head,
yeah.
you can see it all.
It's definitely not it's definitely not the sun. You can see
No,
it's on a sun reflection. It's not lens flare. I mean, I've seen those photos. They're incredible, and
yeah,
and and you've taken several photos in the same position, but
yeah,
the being has moved
it
and
moves.
and and it kind of changed shape. It's like fluid, like,
Yes.
and it's not the sun. You know, it's not the sun.
No, it's not. It's not. And actually, a few people who I sent it to who would be experts in photography and in solar flares said that is definitely not the sun. It's not a solar flare. And whatever it is, it's in the photo with you.
Fantastic,
Hasn't been edited or anything. So,
fantastic,
yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. Um, so, was that the only time that ever happened, or have you seen them any other times?
I have. So last summer, I was doing my C5 contact. And it was about 2 o'clock, and I noticed that I was just looking up, and all of a sudden, these two big white beams, or not to say beams, like orbs, came flying over the house. Now, they were quite high. And I thought, oh, they're not planes, that's not a satellite, and it's not a shooting star. And they were playing with each other in the sky, but they were maneuvering in a way that no aircraft can maneuver. And then they stopped dead. And I went, finally, finally, I'm seeing this with my own eyes. And I just thought, there's no point in taking out the camera. I'm not going to be able to capture it. So I'm just going to keep my eyes on it. And then they just went off in two completely different directions. And I remember putting my hand on my heart and I said, thank you so much. That's all I wanted to see. Just with my own eyes. I just wanted to see that. And I did the C5 contact. It was about 3 o'clock at that stage. I was getting a little bit tired. I was waiting for Terry to get home. He plays in a band. So I came upstairs. I left the light on like I usually do. And I was sleeping on my stomach. And I was still listening to the CE5. And you know the way you go in and out of kind of like sleep and you're
Yeah.
kind of touching and stuff? I got this overwhelming feeling there was something in the room. And I just thought, is that Terry? And as I opened my eyes and looked in this direction, there was a big 6 foot tall, what I would say a Palladium with the white hair, the blue suit.
And again, did it look like a projection, or was it solid?
Oh, it was solid. It
Yeah.
was solid. And I saw it like it wasn't a flash. I had my eyes on it, and as soon as I blinked, I just started screaming. Like what I said was, "I'm sorry, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready." And it went like that.
Wow.
And I was kind of, pulling yourself together. I was like all warm and sweaty, and I was pulling the blankets off me, and I'm looking around the room to see if there's any more. And I had left my window open and I went to close the window, not thinking like, oh, what if something comes in the window? And then at this flashing light up on the left hand side, and I clearly heard, sorry, we frightened you. We won't do it again. And I just said, I'm really sorry. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready.
I know
Yeah.
they don't really give you notice. It
No.
just kind of happens. Like, I don't know, do they get a kick out of that, or and they always do it when you least expect it. Like, I have a video I'll put up here, and you were talking about the two orbs, and I had two orbs. I think I might have showed you this video actually, and they're flying over the house,
Hmm.
okay, and one is kind of flashing and then going in and out of a black flash, but and then the other one is
Oh, yeah.
flashing much faster, right? So this one's just doing kind of this, and then this one's flashing fast, okay. um but what's happening is they're going in and out of our reality. So when they
Yeah.
flash, they're appearing and then they're disappearing, appearing and disappearing, um seemingly because they're shot at so much. A lot of the time, the craft, if they're in the craft, it won't come in as a physical flying saucer, as a physical craft, because they're shooting them down now.
Yes.
They're using energy directed weapons, and they're using radar with um, poisonous encryption in the radar. Like a virus. Like a computer virus, but it's
Yeah.
infecting their controls, and the ship comes out of the sky. So either they're sending in the orbs, which I believe are kind of maybe they're maybe more like drones or surveillance devices, or I don't think the orbs are actual ships,
Yeah.
and I've heard Stephen Greer say that he's remote viewed orbs, where with his consciousness he's put his consciousness on them, and
Yes.
he's study them or examine them or whatever. And then in the orb, he sees 2 or 3 huge, big, gigantic ships out in space. You
Okay.
know, do you know what I mean? So it's like I suppose the closest thing I could say is it's like a drone with a camera on it. But
Yeah.
it's a gathering of ships out in space, and probably God knows hundreds or maybe thousands of beings on these ships watching us, seeing us. You know, um, but anyway, the orbs came in, and they were making the sound of a Cessna. And I'll put this this video up, right? But you can clearly tell it's on a plane, right? And it's coming in. I'm looking up and I can see the two lights, and I'm looking. I say, is that can't be a Cessna? It can't be. And it sounded, you know, the very distinct noise of a propeller plane, right? And it was that noise. It was exactly that noise. But I said, and then the flashing was too bright, and then the lights were too close together,
Okay.
and then you could see the lights change in color, you know. So that like planes don't change color, you know. And I
Yeah.
said that's them. Then I copped it like this. This is all in moments, like this is all in 3 or 4 or 5 seconds that I copped, and then I whipped out the phone, and I started recording, you know. But and actually when I put up the video, and you'll see them flat. Hopefully, you'll hear the sound transmute through the podcast. You'll hear, but what they were doing was, and I've seen them do this in other ways. They were making the noise of a plane so as not to frighten the neighbours.
Ah, yes.
That's what they
Yes.
were doing. And then the next thing, they flew over and then the noise stopped, and then they flew over the house, and then they were just going off into the background. Flashing, you could just see them flashing off in the background with no noise. So the noise, as soon as they got over my head, the noise stopped. And then when I looked up, I could see the two very visible plasma balls, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, like my neighbours, if they saw anything like that, like they have no idea any of this is going on. Right? And like I live out the country, and they wouldn't be too receptive to ETs. You know what I mean? I'd say that if
Yeah.
the pitchfork's out, and I'd say if they knew I was having visits, I'd be getting a pitchfork. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but just to finish that story, like I used to be a pilot, and when I show the video, if people look at it closely, there's 3 reasons why I'm absolutely certain that it wasn't a plane, bar the fact that I physically saw the orbs. You know, I mean, I saw them, but the first reason is when you watch the video, you'll see pylon wires go overhead, right? So the wires, attached to pylons. Okay, you can see those wires, and you can see they're flying maybe I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 feet over the wires.
Okay.
So that means they're no higher. At most, they're no higher than 100 feet.
I
Okay.
get
Now there's a ceiling height. There's a flight ceiling height on all aircraft in Ireland, in most countries, but the ceiling height here is 700 feet. So unless you're coming in to land a plane, you cannot fly lower than 700 feet. A helicopter can't, and a plane can't. Okay.
right.
This thing was flying 100 feet. The second reason I know it wasn't a plane is Cessnas don't have night. They don't have infrared. They don't have night radar. They don't have night transponders. You know, they don't have equipment to fly at nighttime, right? And if you had a pilot with the night rating is extremely difficult to get. So you're able to fly blind, okay? And if you have a night rating, you're flying a 777 or a 747. You're not flying a Cessna. Do you know what I mean? You're very sought after if you have a night rating. You know, you're definitely not flying a Cessna. But Cessnas don't have the equipment anyway. So that's the second reason. And the third reason, where did I lose my train of thought? So yeah, the ceiling limit, the night gear, and yeah, and just seeing the orbs, like, I mean, I'm 1,000% positive it wasn't a plane. And actually, what I'll do as well is I've taken a few stills of it as it's flying, and I'll put those up as well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when the orbs are flashing, I've caught them flashing, and you can see like the orb, and then you can see this. It's like rays coming off it.
Hmm.
They're not normal lights. You can see they're not normal lights, and then they're changing color all the time: gold, blue, green. Excuse me, red, orange, purple. You know, planes don't change color. It's red and green. That's it. You know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went off into a rant there. I'm sorry.
But it's interesting to know that though, Howard. It's good to know that you know, you know that information, so you're able to debunk that it's anything other than something that we don't know of. Do you know what I mean?
I'm still very skeptical. Like, if you tell me, oh, the sky is green, I'm not going to just accept it. I'll need to go out and see for myself. Or, like with me, if I hear something fantastical on the internet or wherever, I won't just say, oh yeah, that's for sure, yeah, that's real. I first of all, I need to hear from at least two or three sources who I I trust somewhat, you know.
Yeah.
So, like I mean, I've talked to you before about that Dolores Cannon, and some of the stuff she says is mad. Like it's very out there. But some of the stuff she said, I've personally seen and experienced, so I tend to trust her. The same with Stephen Greer. I have tried, I have with blood, sweat, and tears, I've tried to prove that man wrong, and I can't. Every single thing he said has been true, and I haven't been able to dispute it. No, whether you like the guy or not. And the people who know he's a this, that, and the other, and the military
Yeah.
gobshites, your Lou Elizondo and all these boys who are trying to pull him down, and he's a terrorist, and he's this. Take away out of that. The man is an ex-doctor. And if they had any dirt on him, if he was doing anything bad, if he was cheating on his wife, if he was lying, if he was doing anything other than telling the absolute truth, they'd have it splashed over every paper. They'd have it in the newspapers. They'd hang him out to dry with it.
Oh, of course.
The cat, like he's. I mean, I don't overly like the guy because especially as he's gotten older, he's gotten a bit. And especially because they're so close to the finish line, he's gotten a bit. A little bit cranky, a little bit crusty, and I understand why he is, but also, he's like, oh, well, I told you so, and I'm right, and I'm right, and he's gotten when he's in some podcasts, he's gotten a bit argumentative, like when you see him on the Unacknowledged documentary, he just seems very calm and very earthy and very pure. It's like it's like he was in a really pure state doing that
Yeah.
documentary, nearly like Gandhi, right? But I see him on some podcasts, and if they start prodding him at all, he loses it, like.
Yeah.
And the problem with him is like he's highly intelligent, and he's a incredible grasp on the English language. So he starts firing these huge English words at them, and blah, 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 blah. Then they can't answer him, and then he just looks like he's trying to belittle them, you
Yeah.
know. And he needs to get away from that a bit. Like if he can come back, if he was to rewatch Unacknowledged himself and be that, because that's what he needs to be now, especially when he's this close to the finish line. But I do understand that because they're so close to he must be going out of his mind, crazy, because
Yeah.
he's dealing with this for like 35 years or something like that. And if you're dealing with something so big for 35 years, and then you can see the finish line right there, you'd be going off your head. You'd be going insane. And I think that's why he's gone the way he is. Just dealing with it for so long. But sorry, yeah. So I am very skeptical. If I hear something from two or three places that I
Yeah.
trust, and I'll do my own research, and you know, if it makes sense to me in my head as well, and I combine all that together, then maybe I'll say, okay, well, maybe this is right. But I won't just jump at something. And even like I remember I had an experience where, and I'll put this one up as well, where I was out the back garden, and I know a lot of the time the ETs will psychologically tell me to go outside and take a photograph. I just feel like I'm doing it. But the photographs are so brilliant and so perfect. There's no, because I'm a terrible photographer,
Yeah,
right?
but your pictures are the best ones I have seen. I can't take them. They will not
Yeah.
appear. I
But that's
can't.
what I'm saying. That's not me, because I'm not that good a photographer, and my timing isn't that good. Like they're literally putting themselves right here. We are. Okay, ready? take the photo. You know, they're literally posing for me. You know, I've got a series of I think it's about 6 photos or 5 or 6 photos. Okay, it was a few years ago. It might have been 4 years ago or something like that. Maybe 2022 or something. But there's a beautiful sky. The top half, and I've cut out the beautiful sky in the photographs. You know, you can see it's lovely, sunny, bright, but the top half of the photo was on fire. It was like the sky was all red. Okay, it was beautiful. And when you see a sky like that, it's very unusual. And when you see a sky like that, there's a good, it's a good indicator they're probably around. Okay, and in the first photo you can't see anything, and then in the second photo you just see it's like this little cloud coming in. You can just see it at the side of the photo, and how you know it's on or do you know what else it looks like? It's a vapor trail from a plane. Long, thin, white vapor trail, right? But again, being an ex-pilot, how vapor trails work is you have an exhaust of the plane, and the exhaust is red hot, and as the fumes are coming out of the exhaust, they hit the ice cold air and they crystallize, and that's you get this big white plume of smoke, and it goes on and on and on and on. And the farther along it goes, the more it fades out, right? Until it disappears altogether. And it's always brightest just as it's coming out of the exhaust. So if you look at these photos and you look at what looks like a vapor trail, right? In the middle, it's brightest, not at either end. That's scientifically impossible. Unless the
Okay.
plane is in the middle of the vapor trail. Do you know what I mean? Which is, it's not possible. Okay? So that's how you know it's not a plane, and it's too bright to be a cloud. It looks like it's lit up. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, you could see it coming in, and they usually don't travel alone. And then in the second photo, you can see kind of one here, and then you can see like another one here in the distance, like that, right? So you can see the buddies, they're flying together, right? And if you didn't know any different, you'd just think it was 2 vapor trails, right? But you'd be kind of like, well, they're very close together for 2 planes, and they're kind of flying, they look like they're flying in tandem. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know there's something weird about the photo,
Yeah.
right? So then in the photo, just kind of over here, you can see this tree. And the next thing, the vapor trail comes over, it flies over, it stops just above the tree, about, I don't know, 20 feet above the tree, right? And then it turns into a disc. Like that. It turns from a cloud into a disc, into like a flying saucer, right? And I'm looking and I'm rubbing my eyes and like, am I actually seeing this, right? So I take a photo, and I take a photo. And in the first 2 photos, you can see it clear. Oh yeah, it was sitting like that. It's just sitting, the disc. You can see the disc, right? For a couple of minutes. And then after a couple of minutes, it does this. And it flicks its arse up like that. Like it's waving up, hello? It just like that. And I'm like, you think you're losing your mind? Am I losing my mind? And if I didn't photograph that, I wouldn't have believed it. Even after seeing it, I still wouldn't have believed it, right? So that happened. Anyway, the first 2 photos. In the third photo, you can see it starting to dematerialize again, changing colours and forming back into a cloud. I photographed this, you can see it, right? And then in the last 2 photos, you can just see it flying off into the distance. You know, they're farther away. But this whole encounter lasted, I think, 22 or 3 minutes. Like he must have been the guts of 10 minutes sitting out the back, sitting like that. And I'm just standing there and I'm like a photographer. Am I actually seeing what I'm seeing? You
Yeah.
really, like I question myself, and I think that's why they let me take so many photos and videos of them. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't believe it. And I was so skeptical. Like I called myself, I was anally skeptical. I was so far the other end. Like if you were talking to me 10 years ago about spirituality and ET, and I said, "Will you go away or that?" I wouldn't even entertain it. And now I'm gone right the other side. And I think maybe that's why I've gotten so many visits, because they say, well, if we can crack this bastard, we can crack anyone.
Yeah.
Because not only do I believe it, I'm absolutely 100% certain, positive, believe it in my heart, spirit, soul. I've photographed it, I've videoed them, I've hundreds of photos and videos, and 20 plus of my friends and family have seen them with me. Do you
Yeah.
know? So, like, it's undeniable.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh,
You
yeah.
know, So I'll put those photos up as well, and I'll try and do some zooming in, and so you can see it clearly. But that was another amazing experience, But again, I felt the urge to go out, and for some reason I went out with the phone, and for some reason I started taking photographs before you could physically see the disc. So they did that, or they got me to do that. No, I
Yeah,
didn't. I didn't feel like a zombie. Oh, they're controlling my mind. It wasn't. It wasn't that. I just had this kind of inkling in the back of my mind to do it.
yeah, like an inner knowing that you
Yeah,
just
yeah. And my position is perfect, and the camera's perfect, and the photos are perfect. And I'm not that good a photographer. I really haven't.
yeah,
So again, that was them, not me.
yeah, yeah.
And to be honest, I think that's the way it is for a lot of the photos and videos I have. I don't think it was me taking them. It was me taking them, but
Yeah,
I was getting a little bit of help, if you know what I mean.
of course. Yeah, it's like the right time, right place, you know, to be able to take them.
Like, as I've said before, if I was to describe the ETs, I describe them as frustratingly subtle.
Oh
It's
God, yeah.
subtle, 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 tiptoe, tiptoe, subtle, subtle, bang, until they're not. And then it's like, holy wow.
Yeah.
And then it's almost overwhelming, And if you weren't ready for it, or you weren't in the mind space, it is definitely overwhelming.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
You know,
100%.
as I said in the last podcast, like you never lose the awe. That awe when you see them.
Mm.
No, you kind of get used to it after a while. I'm sure you're probably bar the fact that your man was in your bedroom while you're in
I,
your nightdress. You know what I mean? That I think that has scared the bejesus out of anyone. But you get what I'm saying. Like you're if something happens in maybe your living room or the woods or your back, you're not jumping out of your skin. It's like, okay, here they are.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. Like I've seen a few like orbs in the house here, like blue orbs. And you're just like, I would say, Terry, did you see that? And he's like, yeah, it's like a blue thing just went. That happens in this house the whole time. And I suppose
Wow,
work
that's
from
cool.
home and I have a portal in the house to bring energy in, and my clients would say as well, like, oh, who was the man that came up the stairs there? And I'm like, there's no man here. And they're like, no, the man, he's really tall and he's in a suit. And then I'll take down Terry's dad's picture who passed away 16 years ago. And I said, was it this man? And they'll go, that's the man I saw on the stairs. And I said, you couldn't have. I said, he died 16 years ago. So
Wow.
it's crazy. And I have asked why won't they, like I've seen stuff in the back garden and I've seen, where I know that what I'm seeing is a ship and I'll consciously connect and I'd be like flash your lights and all of a sudden I get the flash of light.
Brilliant.
And I just be like, okay, cool, I'm good now. I won't ask any more of this, that kind of way.
Brilliant.
Um, but they have said to me the reason why they don't come any closer is because of the amount of houses that of where I am. Because I can see more when I'm in the woods or like
Yeah.
experience more things in the woods. And I remember once I got into my car at the woods and something caught my eye, something was glinting. And just for a split second, when I turned around, I saw the ship and I like blink my eyes, it's gone. Like you're saying they morph in and out. This was just a glimpse of a metallic ship. And I like that. I went, did I just see that? Did I just see that? And I'm like, oh, Sandy, did you see it or not see it? And I'm like, no, I know I saw it because I have the memory of seeing it. And then I'm just like, I'm just going to leave that one where it is. So I
Yeah.
do see glimpses of things
Yeah.
now and
Yeah.
again, like, so,
Um, as I said in the last podcast I did with Hans, one appeared out of the corner of my eye. I could just see this a little white orb appeared, and it did this kind of squiggly wiggle, 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 and then it disappeared, right? And
yeah,
it did this kind of squiggle, I think, to show no, this isn't a ray of sunlight. It's not a beam of light. It's not a flashlight. This is me. Do you know what I mean? Because it did a very funny um, maneuver, right? And I physically saw it with the corner of my eye, and I said to Hans, did you just see an orb? Did you, And he said he was so tired. Like we went on, we did a long enough. I don't know, I think we did about a 2 hour podcast. But he said I'm so tired. He said I could have seen 2 orbs. He said I didn't see anything. Um, but when I sent I shared the podcast, with a few of my friends, and they came back and said, that orb that you saw, that happened 5 or 6 more times throughout the
Wow.
podcast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, did it? And then I looked at it again, and I know I definitely saw it maybe 3 or 4, but they were saying about 5 or 6 times it happened. You could just see
Wow.
it popping in and out in different
Going in.
places,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. So yeah, so they're aware, they're watching, they're all around us,
Oh,
and
100%. Hmm.
their science is conscious based.
Yes.
So I don't ever feel. I know they're watching me all the time. They know my routine. Like, I mean, when I go in and out, it's not. And in case the public are thinking, "Geez, your man's out the back, he's got a UFO sickness and he's out the back with a camera." I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm never out actually, right?
yeah.
And I never meditate anymore. I really only ever meditated properly once that first night, and I really didn't think I was doing it right, you know.
Hmm.
But they know my routine, like that. Those two orbs that flew over the house. I was coming back from work. It was dark. It was winter time, and I was at the car, and I was just closing the car door. Now, what are the chances that they flew over the house during the 10 seconds that it would take me to get out of the car and get into the house? What are the chances of that? Do
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? And that's happened loads of times.
yeah.
You know, so they know, like, and they can be anything. They can do anything. You
Oh,
know,
100. Yeah.
I've seen them look as clouds. I've seen them look as vapor trails. I've seen physical craft. I've seen orbs. Um, one thing I'm not sure of though is did I ever show you the being that videoed itself on my phone?
Yes, I
So
remember that.
I don't know, and again I'll try and put that up. I'm so technically crap. Trying to be PC. I'm so bad with technology, you know. And if anybody says you're doctoring the photos, I couldn't. I couldn't doctor a piece of paper, let alone. I'm so bad with technology. But anyway, um, yeah. So again, like sometimes they wake me up at 3 or 4 in the morning. Does that ever happen to you?
I have, yeah. I've actually woken up with my name being said in
All
my
right.
ear. Yeah, and
Okay.
I have, and then obviously there's someone there. But like when I tell you, like my dreams are so vivid. Like I have been dreaming of planets, different types of ETs. I've been in ships. I've been in little small ships that have arrived out the back garden. I've gone into them. I've been being like crazy stuff like. And I
That's cool.
remember every single thing that they said to me. They told me about the hybrid program. They showed me a hybrid. They were telling me that they have hybrids up there. We have hybrids on Earth. Um, it's really it's kind of crazy.
And what
Um,
what's the idea of the hybrids? Like why?
I remember being on in a kind of a temple like structure, and I saw this big tall woman walk out, and behind her kept this little head just kept popping out. And I remember I said, "Is that what I think it is?" And they said, "Yes, it's a hybrid child." And I said, "So it is human, female eggs and obviously sperm from, ETs." And they
Mm.
said, yes, that they have a program and that we on Earth have hybrids on Earth as well.
Well,
And that,
seemingly the black military are supposed to be doing it full time, but not in a good way. You
yeah,
know,
good way.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
it's it's trying to extract information and powers and consciousness and whatever else they can get out of them. It's not for the love of nature or creating a a
yeah.
being. Do you know what I mean?
Now, they did tell me that their program is consensual with humans. So when they take humans, the humans have actually said, or the women have said, yes, you can take my eggs and make a hybrid. So obviously, it's women who are having full on experiences with ETs and they know that they have hybrid children. You know what I mean? That's the
Because
kind
I
of,
have heard many times that people they've come back, got them, brought them on the ship or brought them to a planet, and they've met their children.
yes.
I've heard that a lot, you know. Never kind of knew quite what to make of it. But you
Hmm.
see, the thing is, and just for people at home, in case you think this is all bonkers, mad, and crazy, like, if you're not informed, okay, if you can prove this to yourself in 10 seconds. If you Google um, Commander David Fravor, Rear Admiral Timothy Gallaudet, and Commander Ryan Graves, two pilots and the Rear Admiral of the Nimitz carrier group. They swore in front of Congress. They chased them, they tracked them, they've seen them. There's about 12 or 13 ships in the Nimitz carrier group, right? So you have the aircraft carrier, that's the mammy, that's the mothership, right? That carries whatever, 200 plus planes and helicopters. Then you have like 3 or 4 destroyers, 3 or 4 battleships, and 3 or 4 submarines guarding the mammy, guarding the mother, right? And there's 5,000 people alone on the battleship, or on the aircraft carrier. Sorry. So on the whole fleet, I think you're talking upwards of about 15,000 people.
Right.
And they swore that every man and woman in the fleet saw them. They were coming out of the water. Big black triangles. They'd come up, and then they'd send 2 Chinooks to escort them, and they'd fly along until the triangle would fly off up into space. And he said, he swore in front of Congress, he said, we've tracked them doing 500 plus knots under the water. So if anybody has any doubts that this is real, just Google that. You can see the photographs, you can see the videos, you can see it on YouTube. They've had 4 live congressional hearings about UFOs now at this stage. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
There's astronauts, loads of astronauts have now come out and talked about it. Buzz Aldrin said that, he said, when we were going to the moon the first time, he said, we were looking out the window and one was following us. It was a bright light and it was changing colour, and like there wasn't supposed to be anything up in space from Earth at that stage. They were the first things, bar Sputnik, but you know what I mean. They were supposed to be the only things in space at that time, and they're flying along and this thing's following them. And as he said, like, technically we didn't know what it was, so technically it was a UFO, and he called that back on the private channel. Then when Neil Armstrong was landing the lunar module into the crater, he rang back on the private channel and he said, they're all around the crater, and he said, they're watching us. And Mission Control said, right, Neil, spin the lunar module 180 degrees so the camera doesn't catch them.
Wow.
So, they've always been there.
Well, they've always been there. And I think as well, like, if anything happens on Earth, it's going to have a direct impact on the universe. And, like, aliens have always said that they are kind of the closest to the humans to watch our evolution, and that they will step in if the powers that may be make the wrong decisions. And actually what they said was, if that big red button gets pressed, we will be there before it's pressed.
Yeah.
They will intervene.
Seemingly, I don't. Did you ever see that? He was the ex-minister for Defence of Canada. His name was Paul Hellyer. He died a couple of years ago. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe he passed away. And he was an old man, like he was in his 80s. But he was the ex-minister for Defence of Canada, and he was the first proper government official to kind of come out and say, yeah, it's real. And his famous saying was, he said, UFOs are as real as the planes flying over your head. That was his famous saying. That's what he used to always say, But he spoke about, he said that they have, he said they have a galactic federation, like Star Trek, okay? And this was confirmed, and I'll tell you in a minute, by a member of Project Blue Book, okay? Project Blue Book, J. Allen Hynek, they were sent out to debunk back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, debunk the whole UFO thing, right? Yeah. So, and one of those guys, his name was Oscar, he confirmed that, okay? So they have this galactic federation from all over, I don't know, the galaxy or galaxies. There's supposed to be a very large number of them, probably hundreds or thousands, who knows? And they're watching us. And Paul Hellyer said that if it ever gets to the point where I think 60 or 70% of the population of Earth is in danger, or the planet itself is in danger of not recovering, they can step in. They have a non-interference policy, like Star Trek, unless it gets to that point. But I mean, seriously, do we really want it to get to that point where they have to step in?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like I've said this before. You know, a few people say, why don't they just come down and fix it, fix everything? You know, and like as I said, first of all, I said like if they came down with 10 craft or 100 craft, and they flew over Ireland and they flew over England and they flew over Spain and they flew over Germany. You know, and they did a lap of the earth, right? And
Hmm.
then they did a lap this way, and then they do a lap this way, right? And over the space of a couple of hours, they fly over every single country on the
Yeah.
world. Okay, 50 million people drop dead of a heart attack.
Of course they would.
They
Their whole
know
business
this.
will have crashed.
They know this. Like people say, why don't they land in the front the front line of the White House? They know that people would be terrified. They'd be upset. That's why they're not doing it. That's why it's this subtle, gentle thing. That's why it's orbs, it's flashes of light, it's craft here. It's you know, it's people like you and me
Hmm.
trying to educate people because it has to be done subtly. It has to be done slowly.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
um, like and as I said, like they know this. That's why they're not doing it. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is like if they come down and they fix everything, and I mean fantastic, right? They clean up the planet, they clean the air, they clean the water, they clean the land, they get rid of pollution, they get rid of poverty. You know, everybody has plenty. They give us an amazing roadmap on how to live our lives. They help us with spirituality. They get rid of anxiety, depression, mental health problems. Everything is just amazing, and they fix everything just fantastic. Everything is just fantastic. Not everybody's going to like the way they fix it.
Well, this is the thing, yeah, because everyone's at a different level of their own soul evolution. You're always going to have people that don't want to conform. You're always going to have people who are, say, damaged or, do you know what I mean, are not kind and who are cruel and violent. You're still going to have those people, no matter
Absolutely.
what, no matter what.
And another thing is, if they did fix everything, no matter how fantastic it would be,
Yeah.
does that then make them an invading force? Because they've fixed it. Even though it's amazing, everything's fantastic,
Yeah,
but they've fixed it. We haven't. No,
exactly.
I've asked them, Jesus Christ, would you ever come down and fix things? I've asked the question. As I say, I don't get the two-way conversation. Although, mind you, I don't get the two-way conversation, but sometimes I answer myself in my head and it doesn't sound like something I would say. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but like I might be thinking about something, you know, something important, you know, something about work or whatever it is, and like, geez, what am I going to do about that now, you know? And the next thing I'll hear myself say in my own head, no, you know me, like I'm being very PC here because we're on a podcast, but you know I'm very blue. I'm f this and shit that and fucking I curse. I'm Irish and I'm you know I suppose I'm a. They say if you curse a lot, you're a passionate person. So I must be awful passionate, right? But I mean I'm blue. I curse a lot, and when I'm answering myself, it's very succinct, it's very precise, and it's not how I speak. It's like, well, no, this is what you do, and this, and this, and this. And I'm like, and then I catch myself, did I, did I say that? Was that, you know, I kind of catch myself, but it's not, and it's in my voice, so it's not like, you know,
Yeah.
it's me answering myself, but it's not the way I speak.
I get you. Yeah, because when I channel for clients, I hear it in my head and I speak what I hear. And the clients are like, "How did you know that? How did you know that?" And I'm like, "I'm channeling a higher frequency, a higher consciousness, and it's coming just through me because I'm just the vessel." And I'm a writer, like I write poetry, creative writing. The same process happens for me when I write about spirituality. I'll sit down and I'll open up and I'm like, okay, ETs, the divine, God, whoever, channeled through me. What do I need to put out into the world today? And I'll just start writing. And a lot
Class.
of the time when I read it back, I'm like, ooh, that was good. I would never have been able to come up with that.
Yeah.
That's not me. That's definitely not me. But yeah, I know exactly the experience that you're having. Yeah.
Um, but just to go back to that other point about Project Blue Book, and I said to you that that you know the ETs and the Galactic Federation, and you know, and remember I said that that was confirmed, right? Excuse me. So this was on a podcast with Daniel Sheehan, and I'll actually try and put that down in the in the comments below when I publish the podcast, so people can go to the podcast and see this. So it was a podcast. Oh God, as a Camp Gagnon or something like that, I think was the name of the guy pod. It's a weird name. Anyway, Daniel Sheehan was on it, and Daniel Sheehan, I don't know if you're aware of him. You'd have seen him briefly in Unacknowledged, and I think maybe in Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, Stephen Greer's documentaries. And he used to be in the Stephen Greer camp, but he jumped ship and he went over to Lou Elizondo. Now, I'd say the two reasons he did that, because I asked Stephen Greer's PA, his executive assistant. She's a friend of mine. She did a podcast with me actually a while back. Excuse me, and she said that he likes a bit of fame. He likes being in the limelight, and she reckons he jumped ship for that because Lou Elizondo now he has a book and he's selling millions of books, and he's the one that started the disclosure movement when he was not. He's the one that started the fake disclosure, creating fear and spreading fear and all the crap that he's been caught out on at least a half dozen different occasions lying. He put up these fake videos and photos of UFOs, and some computer analyst analysed them and he said they're fake, and he proved it, and he showed the light and he showed the way things were put in, and he said that's a fake, and it was all over the internet, and he's still out there and he's still blowing his own trumpet, and he's a lying bastard. Like, he lied for a living. He was a spy. He was what was it? He was a covert counterintelligence spy. So he lied for a living. That's all he did. And you can imagine what kind of good liars they are. So how can you ever trust him?
Mm.
He wouldn't know the truth if it slapped him across the head. But anyway, sorry. Daniel Sheehan jumped into his camp, and for the bit of a bit of exposure, bit of the limelight. Now, I think also he went over to him because obviously that'd be the money camp as well. Because your man has the government, the black military, and there'd be no into the coffers there. That's a bottomless pit of money. So he's going to get well paid for moving over there. Whereas Stephen Greer is kind of self-funded. He's he works on charity. He gets money from his movies, his books, and whatever. And that's how he lives, and that's how he, as he said, if he stayed being a doctor, he'd be worth tens of millions. Whereas they're surviving by it's day-to-day stuff, No, he's not poor, but he's not, certainly by American standards, he's not what you'd call wealthy. He might have a few million, but he's not worth tens of millions, And as he said himself, his costs are astronomical. When he's holding these C5 events, or when he does a big event in front of the National Press Club, and then he has to bring in all these whistleblowers. He has to fly them in, and then he has to hire security to mine them, and then obviously he has to have security himself. Like when I met him in London. We had dinner in the Shard afterwards, and Jesus, Mary, Joseph, you want to see the security? Wow,
Yeah.
And they were, excuse my friend, they were thick bastards,
Yeah.
all of them were 6'7", 6 foot, massive. They were huge men, physically huge men, and there was at least 7 or 8 of them. You'd want a freaking team of Navy SEALs out to take these boys out, and obviously they're military,
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I'm just the internet was just a bit tricky there, so I'm just after switching the internet off my phone. We had to take off our shoes. We had to go through a metal detector. They checked our pockets, the whole lot. This is just going into the hotel.
Wow.
And we were just going up having dinner.
Yeah.
So it was, it's serious stuff. So his expenditure would be big. But anyway, so this Daniel Sheehan was on this podcast, and he was talking about, he said some mad stuff, he was talking about the Catholic Church and how they need to disclose everything, and some of the stuff he said was just, it's he's their mouthpiece, and he's the head legal counsel for the Jesuit church. This guy is the top, probably the top lawyer in the world.
Oh,
He broke the Iran Contra scandal. So, when the CIA was running drugs in from Iran to fund themselves, totally illegal, he broke that case. And they
gosh.
couldn't touch him. Now, think about it. The CIA couldn't touch him. Not many
Yeah.
people that the CIA can't touch. You know what I mean? And he's still walking around, he's still living and breathing. And he broke that case. But, so he's on this podcast and he started talking about this guy, Oscar. So Oscar was part of Project Blue Book. Okay? So you have J. Allen Hynek, who's in the Steven Spielberg movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He did a cameo at the end. He told Steven Spielberg what to put on the screen, and Steven Spielberg brought it to life. And I'm coming to disclosure there. I want to talk to you about disclosure there, right? But J. Allen Hynek did that. So and he was the head of Project Blue Book, along with this guy Oscar. So Oscar rings Daniel Sheehan. He said, "Look, Daniel, I need to talk to you. Okay, I'm dying, and I need to get some stuff off my chest." So Daniel Sheehan goes to visit him, and he goes to what do you call it? A hospice. You're basically going, you're preparing to die. And he went to the hospice and he walked in and he said, he's lying on the bed and there's all these tubes coming out of him and he's preparing to die. And he said, "Oh, Daniel, thanks for coming and thanks for coming. I really need to get this off my chest. I really need to talk to you." And Daniel said, "What is it?" And Oscar said, "I've had a face-to-face meeting with an extraterrestrial. And it's not the first time." And Daniel, what did he say? And he said, "Well, I asked him, he said, I said, who are you? And why are you here?" And the extraterrestrial said, "Well," he said, "I'm part of a galactic federation, as Paul Hellyer mentioned." And he said, "I've been tasked with coming to hospitable planets and seeding life, and then monitoring and reporting back on the species evolution." You, me, everybody, right?
Yeah.
And as I say, I don't just believe everything. If I hear it from a few credible sources, and the thing about Daniel Sheehan, I wouldn't trust him as far as I'd throw him. He's a lawyer, but there's something likable about him, and he's extremely intelligent, and he's very well spoken. And there's something like when he starts talking, you start listening. He's a way of captivating you. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, he's in that position. And he's that powerful because he's that intelligent, because he has that instant likability, because he has an amazing grasp of the English language, and because he's an amazing lawyer. So obviously he has all the right qualifications, But when he's talking, he doesn't sound like he's talking crap. There's something very believable about what he's saying, and some of the things he says is so shocking, even against the likes of the Catholic Church, who he's their mouthpiece. It's he can't be lying about that. Why would he be saying that? So there's something very believable about him. But anyway, he said about this Oscar, and he said. He said, so Oscar said, so, this ET said, "I've been tasked with, seeding life on hospitable planets, monitoring the species' progress and reporting back on it." Mm-hmm. So Oscar's second question was, so, okay, well, who's in charge? Who tasked you with doing this? Mm-hmm. And the ET said to him, "Well, you people would call it God.
Yes.
But it's nothing like what you understand."
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, the ETs being here, their presence, what and who they are, seems to be confirmed.
Yes.
Because they're two very credible sources.
Yeah. And I would have had the same experience with the whole where they come from, how they came into being as well. You know what I mean? I would be partial once a year to some psilocybin.
Okay. What? Tell me what's psilocybin? I've heard it. What is it again? What's it do?
It's liberty caps, basically. It's our Irish magic mushroom.
Ah, okay.
And
And
once,
you, sorry.
yeah, once a year I do a ceremonial dose. and I prepare beforehand. I know exactly where I'm going to go, what I'm going to ask. And yeah, I just open myself up to the universe, to different types of intelligent beings. And then when I come back in fully into my body, I have written page after page after page of wisdom and insight. So when I read it back, I'm blown away. Like I'm absolutely blown away. I'm like, holy shit, can't
Wow.
believe it's got this. Yeah. And a lot of the time, I don't put it out there in the public domain. Like I work with it solely with my clients. So, say like ETs have kind of showed me how to help women who can't conceive. They guide me into places in the body that I have to work with. And they're then energetically working on the body through me.
Wow.
And that's why I think I like last year we had 23 natural pregnancies.
Wow.
Three. And a
Fair
lot
play.
of them, yeah, like a lot of them were told by specialists, by IVF doctors, they'd never get pregnant. And I would just, sit and meditate. I'd ask my questions, I'd get the answer, I'd be like, right, let's do this. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
helping in so many different ways. Even if people are not necessarily seeing them physically, they might feel them, or, like me, like I've been dreaming of them, my whole life. And I've met other ETs as well, not just like your typical Nordics or your Palladians or the Greys, but I've actually come across like almost like insect type people.
Right. I mean, I've heard like insectoids and reptilians. I've heard all that. I didn't know whether to believe it or not. But I
Yeah.
mean, I would say you like to me you're credible. So you're telling me so these different types are real. Greys, Pleiadians, the kind of tall whites, the Nor. What's the difference between a tall white and a Nordic? Because to me, I thought they'd both be the same kind of. A tall white is. But I think the tall white. I don't know if they're very human looking, whereas the Nordics, excuse me, they look like a very tall Swede or something like that. Someone from Sweden.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, and I think that's just the nickname I think that people have put on them. But like I have had experiences where I'm talking to these insect-like beings, and they've told me that they're already on the earth, but the only thing is they can't come out into our sun. I had this unbelievable experience one night. So they live underground, and they said there is a lot of species from the universe that are on Earth. Some of them live in caves, some of them live under the water, some of them can't come out into the sunlight because they're not evolved enough for our sunlight. So they're underground type of species, like. It was the only time I've ever had that experience was that one experience that I had where I was speaking to them, and they're almost like a praying mantis type
People
being.
say that, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard that. I've heard that a good bit.
yeah. And I was brought to one planet before, and I saw like hundreds of different types of species, and I was being walked through them all, and it's like you can hear them speaking, and I'm like, oh, wow, look at that one! I've never seen that one before. That's how vivid my dreams are, and my experiences are with them. And like I remember one time I gave out to them, and I was just like, you never come to me. You only just come to me in my dreams, and they were like, your frequency because you're a seer. That's why we come to you because that's where my energy lies. That's like my true gift is seership. So they make me see things, not necessarily like you, Howard, like you can see them and you take photos in the 3D world. Whereas I go off in dreamland and go to a completely different level of dreaming.
We're like the
Um,
two in Disclosure.
I taught that in the cinema. I actually turned around to Terry and I said, this is like me and Howard. We're like the two characters. Because it's mad, because when I first met you, I had a very deep, innate feeling I had met you on a ship before. And
Okay.
there's a scene near the end of Disclosure when the two characters are on the ship and they hold hands
Yeah.
of very emotional, like really emotional. And I
Yeah.
said,
I got very het up there as well. Yeah.
but instantly I saw your face and I said, that's how I met Howard. And I wanted to leave it because I knew I was doing this to say it to your face. And I
Okay.
said, that's how I think I met Howard. I think I met him on a ship before because he's too familiar to me. He's
Yeah.
way too familiar. Do you know, you live what, Galway? I live in
Yeah,
Laois. We live
yeah,
once. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Because see, what sucks is I don't remember my dreams, and I was always asking them like, Jesus, I want to see you, I want to meet you, will you? And no, the one thing I did say to them is, if you're going to appear, will you do me a favor? Don't appear in the house and people around the corner frightened of it shit on me. You know what I mean? Will you, like, at the top of the garden, wave, and I'll come out and how you, and but that has never happened, except for maybe that being that video itself, which I actually forgot to tell that story. If you remind me, I'll tell it at the end. But that being recorded, 5 different videos, 5 0-second videos. They're
Oh
all
my,
0-second, and the first. Sorry, no, was it 5 or 6? 5, I think. The first 3 are black, but when you press play, just for a split second, and then when you press play, the next one, and then when you press play on the third one, so there's some action happening in each of them, okay?
oh,
But in the last 2, the last 2 aren't black. You can physically see the house. It's 3 o'clock at night. Got woken up, went outside, and usually when they wake me up, again, it's not that somebody's tapped me on the shoulder, hey, wake up. It's not that. It's like I wake up, bing, I'm wide awake. It's like somebody. Do you ever see your one in Pulp Fiction and she gets the shot of adrenaline in the heart? It's like literally like, I'm awake. Wow, Whereas like normally when I wake up, I have to peel my eyes open and it takes me 10 minutes or 20 minutes to physically wake up and get out of the bed. And then when I do wake up, that's it. I'm awake for the night. But when I get woken up by them, it's a bing, wide awake, right? And it always seems, oh, jeez, I'm wide awake. I'm never going back to sleep. And then when I go outside, there's usually something flying around. I take a video or a photo or whatever, right? But this particular night, I went outside, beautiful clear sky, looking around. It was about 10 minutes looking around. And there's no sign. I said, well, feck you, so, all right? I'm going back in. There's no sign. And I walked back in. And boom, went straight back. I mean, instantly straight back to sleep. And that doesn't happen to me, right? But the next day, I opened up the phone, and there was these 5 videos. They were the last things in my photo library, video library, right? And I'm looking at it, and I could just see black, black, black. And I started playing, when you press play just for a split, and then I press play again, every time I press play, you'd hear the sound. And I did that with the first 3. And then with the next one, with the 4th one, you can see the house. There's no outside lights. All the electrics and the outside lights. I'm renting this house, and all the lights in the canopy, none of them work. So there's absolutely 0 outside lights, bar the 2 solar ones up at the gate. Okay? Now, I had the light in the bedroom on, but there's no outside lights. And just kind of above the bedroom window, you can see this looks like a triangular being. And it's moving so fast across the screen, you can see shadows of it. It's like the light has captured it a few times. It's moving so fast. And when you press the play button, you can hear another, or you can hear another sound. And then it's the same in the last one. But I have no memory. I did not. I had the phone in my hand, but I'm looking up. I wasn't filming or videoing anything. So it took control of my phone and it videoed itself.
oh yeah.
Okay? Now, think about it. These are 5 0-second videos.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to take, and they're all at the same time, whatever it was, 3:47, 3:47, 3:40, they're all at the exact same time and they're all 0-second. So if I was to be able to take, which I physically, it wouldn't be possible for me to do that, but if I was able to take 5 0-second videos, actually it's 6, now that I think of it, I'd have to press the on-off button 12
Yeah.
times in under a second
To get them.
to get them. Now, I physically, I couldn't do that 12 times in under a second. And I don't think the phone has the capability of taking 6 0-second videos instantaneously in a row. Because when you think about it, when you press record, there's a delay. And when you press stop, there's a delay.
Yeah.
So there's no way you could do 12 delays in under a
No.
second. So that was him saying, you didn't do this, I did this. No, I didn't see anything. I looked around. I kind of thought maybe, maybe I felt something like, maybe there's something wrong, but I couldn't see anything. So I just went back inside. But the next day they were on my phone.
That's incredible.
No, and again, I'll try and put that up. But sorry, no, to go back to Disclosure Day. So, like, first of all, the film is amazing. I know it's gotten some mixed
Yeah.
reviews. And I remember after seeing it, I remember saying that, like, a lot of people aren't going to like this because it's not typical Steven Spielberg. It's not War of the Worlds. It's not explosions. There's not lasers. There's not, it's not Tom Cruise. It's not Mission Impossible. That's not the film. This is simply disclosure. And while the characters are fictional, the content is real.
Yeah.
Every single bit of that content is real. And if you do any kind of research, you'll see it's real. you know. But you know, I think it will be life changing for people down the road, maybe 6 months or 12 months from now, when they realize how much truth is actually in that movie. And the two things about the movie, the first thing is, that UFO that's coming out of the clouds, right? That's supposed to be actual UFO footage. Now, whether it is or not, I don't know, but it's supposed to be. A lot of people are saying it is, But the second thing about the movie is it's supposed to depict exactly what's going to happen next year when the ETs disclose themselves, because next year is supposed to be the year.
Yeah.
2027. I don't know if you've heard that, but like all the gurus are saying it. Steven Spielberg a year ago said, he said, I'm almost certain within the next 12 to 18 months, the ETs will disclose themselves. Like that would have brought us into 2027. Your man Bashar, I don't know what do you know Bashar? What do you make of him?
We had this conversation before. I'm torn with Bashar, and I think you know what it is. It's the
Yeah.
voice for me. I find it very formative. Do you know what I mean? Why does every time someone channels ETs, it's like this English accent, this like, this professor type of. Because what I've experienced, the voices and the clicks and the different frequencies, like when I've dreamt and they've spoken to me, they don't sound anything like that. Do you know? So I think sometimes with the whole kind of like there's a space in the spirituality realm where everything's very performative. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the people, I'm telling you right now, the people that can truly channel ETs are not online. They're not. They're
Yeah. And in my experience, anybody that's real, generally anybody that's real, and look, your man talking, and here I am online. All right, okay, but I like the main reason I'm doing this is I've been getting all these visits, and I've said this before.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel very privileged to have had all the experience I've had, and so many, and I kind of feel I should be doing something with this, like
Yeah.
they're coming to me for a reason,
Yeah.
and I do want to help, like genuinely, I want to help, and I couldn't think of anything else to do, and I remember I do a bit of training, I lift a bit of weights, and with a buddy of mine, and he said to me, why don't you do a podcast? He said, you love talking about this stuff. He said, why don't you do a podcast? And I'm sitting there like, maybe that's what I'm meant to do. So here I am. But genuinely, anybody that's genuine, anybody that's having proper experiences, they're not out there selling themselves. They're not. And if you notice, like, no more than you, like I'm looking at you, you've had these incredible experiences that anybody would be privileged to have. And you're not, oh, look at me, look, I'm Sandy, I'm the alien, oh, look, I'm a mate, you don't do any of that. You're just trying to help people,
And it's funny, this is the first podcast, and like I've been asked to go to retreats, I've been asked to do other podcasts, and I've said no. You are the only person in the last 10 years that I have said yes to. Do you know?
Thank you.
So yeah, I don't.
And like that, like I remember meeting somebody a while ago, and I shared some of my experiences, and she goes, "Oh, you're the one," and I'm like, "What? I'm not the one. No, I'm not. Whatever one you're talking about, I'm not him.
I'm not here.
No, you know." and you know, my customers say to me like, you know, did you go on the TV? Did you, you know, did you do like Today FM or Ireland FM, or did you, you know? And like, you must be joking. I say, you know what they're going to say? Crazy UFO dog guy. You know that's where it's going to go. You know, so I hate publicity. I mean, I don't hate doing this because I love talking to you. I love talking to like-minded people who've had these amazing experiences, and I do feel we're doing. Sorry.
You get emotional. That's okay. Take your time.
Sorry.
You're fine. Don't apologize. It's been such a huge experience for you because I know your story and I know how it all came about, get you to this point, you know?
I do feel, you know, you and I and people like us, we're doing a good, a good measure of good, you know, and that's what I'm trying to do with it. Sorry.
You see, this is why they visit you, Howard. This is why they visit you. You've got such a huge heart. You're very sensitive, you know? You just feel things on a different level. And that's a gift. There's not many people can do that.
Uh, the bummer about being an empath is I feel everything
Yeah.
all the time. I feel the hatred in the world. I feel the pain in the world, and it's awful hard to cope with all the time. Uh,
Oh,
excuse me. I find that hard, you know.
yeah.
And now that I'm switched on and my mind has been opened, it just comes flooding in now, and it's hard. Like I look at Trump and I look at America and all they're doing and all that, you know, Jesus, the bad stuff that's happening in the world at the moment, and it's so hard to take, you know, and there's so many people suffering when there's no need for it, you know. And as I said before, I've had this taste of how amazing our all our lives could be. And I just want to share, if only people could get a taste of what I've seen, of what I've felt, of the experiences, the beauty, the peace, the love, you know. And like I don't know what to say, and I'm not you know, run around with posies in my hair, kind of like tree hugging guy. I'm not like. I drive a motorbike. You know, I juggle Rottweilers for a living. You know, I'm a man's man. But you know, this stuff it leaves you. It just leaves you floored.
It does. It is. And I mean, when you open up that level of your own soul and your own spirituality, you can't unfeel and you can't unsee. You just have to experience it and just keep going with it.
If everybody could just get a little taste of what I've experienced, it would change them forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, to get back to Disclosure Day, that at the end of it, and look, spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen it, you know,
Sweet.
we're going to spoil the end a little bit, you know. So just block your ears for the next 5 minutes. But yeah, I mean, when they're torturing and killing the
Oh,
ETs at the end, like it's just, you know, can you like, and I'd like the people at home to think about this. Imagine, seemingly, according to Stephen Greer, they've shot down at least 1,000 of their craft in the last 80 years. He reckons maybe 1,000, up to 1,000, maybe even 1,000 plus of their craft. Now, can you imagine your brother or your mum or your dad flying one of those and listen, Mrs. You have to go to this planet here with these monkeys and
mhm.
do a flyover here, check this, check a soil sample, come back, and next thing, da, 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 and you're shot down. And then somebody radios back, Sandy, listen, your mum was after being killed here by these fucking savages.
Yeah.
What would your reaction be? You know what I mean? What would, if they were doing that to us? What would our reaction be? We'd light them on fire,
Oh,
you know.
absolutely. It was a bit, yeah, it was very emotional, very
And
emotional.
they haven't struck back. They haven't killed us. They haven't tortured us. You know, like for the folks at home, if you see, this thing, where they're anally probing you and they're sticking things in your eyeballs and they're sucking out your brain, that's all Hollywood horse manure.
Hollywood, yeah,
That does not happen.
yeah,
And then people say, but there has to be bad ETs and good ETs. Look, two things. First of all, if they've evolved as far as they have, they've gone through the nuclear stage, they've gone through 10 other stages, a million times more powerful than nuclear weapons, and they've survived. That means that psychologically and spiritually, they've had to have been gotten
yeah,
to an extremely good place to handle that level of power and not kill themselves or people around them.
yeah. And they would have done it by now anyway.
Absolutely. 100%. Like, what are they waiting for? The grass to grow?
Exactly. Doesn't make
Um,
sense.
we'd be gone. And, like, it wouldn't be like War of the Worlds. It wouldn't be, shooting bullet. We'd be just gone.
Oh
It
yeah,
wouldn't be,
gone.
it wouldn't be a question. Like, there'd be no war. They just say, right, okay, do you know what? These boys are just too much. They're too evil. Let's just get rid of them. Gone. And we'll put something else there instead.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah,
know, But thankfully, the majority of us are peaceful. The majority of us just want to live our lives, just want to know love,
yeah.
happiness, you know,
Connect. Yeah,
connectivity, not be poor, have something to eat,
yeah.
have some lovely experiences, maybe travel a little bit. I've said this to the ETs, if you don't let me on a craft before I die, I'm going to be, if I don't get to drive one,
Same.
like when I'm driving my motorbike, and I was actually, I had an awful, I had an awful, I had a very close call on Monday, and it's not the close call that you think it was, but and I know this is going to get thrown back in my face, but for the crack, we may as well, since I've cried on the screen, I may as well do this. So the close call was I was a little bit late for work, and I was supposed to open the centre at 7 o'clock, and thankfully, I mean, I'm 15 miles away from work, but I can get in, on the bike like in about 11 minutes, doing the speed limit.
Yeah.
But I used to be a heavy drinker, right? And a friend of mine, actually Stephen Greer's personal assistant at Raven, and I was telling her, like, and I went to the doctor there about a year ago, and she said, we see a tiny, tiny little spot on it might be a spot on your liver. I said, a tiny spot? I said, I'm amazed I have a liver. Jesus Christ, like, you know. So anyway, I used to be a heavy drinker. She said, oh, do you know what? She said, the problem with people, and this is a good tip maybe for everybody out there. The problem with people is when you hit your 40s, 50s, and you're probably aware of this, and I'm not telling you anything, but when you hit your 40s and 50s, the human body gets very acidic. And she said, like, if you've been drinking heavy in the past, she said your body probably is acidic. She said you need to start drinking a very, very high quality bicarbonate of soda and water in the morning and evening. Okay? And the problem with bicarbonate of soda is whoosh, there's a great clearing.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
I do.
Right? And on Monday, I'm I'm on the bike. I'm a bit late for work. I didn't get a chance to go to visit the bathroom, and I'm on the bike. And you see, the problem with the bike is the way you're sitting. Your arse is cocked up. You're sitting on the bike and your arse is cocked up in the air. And the next thing, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh. So the next thing I do 145 miles an hour, about 220 kilometers an hour over the motorway. I literally just got into the center, and I had my pants down hitting the toilet, and it was a close call. So yeah, I'm not afraid of speed, and I'm not afraid of the fly crafts. I've said to them,
Yeah.
if I don't get a spinning one at the very least, and if I don't get to fly one before I die, I'll be awful pissed off.
Oh yeah.
So that's
So will I.
that's the request. Yeah, disclosure day. I don't know. What were your thoughts on it? What did you take away from it?
Yeah, no, I thought it was really good. I can understand why people kind of thought it was a bit drawn out. Um, I found it very emotional. There was lots of parts that really just hit me straight in the heart. One thing that I really picked up from it is that, like, again, the female, Emily Blunt, the empathy. They were both very empathetic characters, but it's almost like empathy now has become a gift because
Yeah,
not many people, you know, have that quality nowadays. Compassion, empathy, human connection. That's what I took away from Disclosure Day and the fact that that's how they can communicate with us. It really is like a human tale,
yeah, yeah,
and I think they are looking at us and seeing the lack of empathy and the lack of compassion and what we're doing to each other and what we're doing to the planet. And I
yeah,
think that's they're connecting to the ones that are still open and the ones that can still help and get that energy out there. Because I've said to them before, they've told me, you're doing the work we want you to do by doing your healings and by staying in your lane, you know, and by evolving, because I'm constantly evolving. So like you, like I don't like big crowds. I can't be around a lot of people because I pick up too much. So like I'm always in the woods. I live in the bloody place.
yeah.
Do you know?
Um,
So
that's
yeah,
that's what I find great about working with dogs because the energy is it's almost always good, you know.
yes, yes.
So I like I'll sit down in the pen and I'll just get mobbed, you know, and
Mm,
it's great. It's great therapy.
it is.
Now at the same time when they're bold and they're barking and you have 50 dogs howling and barking for
Yeah,
11 hours during the day, that's not that can be taxing. But no,
yes.
most of the time they're really good. And as I say, the energy, the healing, um, yeah, it's great. I'm lucky to do what I do. Um, so that was Disclosure Day. As I say, I do think down the line it will it will be life changing for people when they see how much truth is in it. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, to get back to the about it's supposed to depict exactly what's going to happen next year.
Okay.
So Greer said it, Bashar said it. I'm a bit with you on Bashar. Like as I say, he's either an absolute genius and a con
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
a genius and a con man, or he's the real thing. You know,
Yeah.
because some of the answers he gives are incredible. And I know
Oh,
during one interview, this Australian girl, he was being interviewed by an Australian TV station, whatever, and they came to his house or whatever, and he was out in his kind of marquee. And she had a list of questions. She said, I have a few questions here that have been given to by like politicians, teachers, scientists, that are,
yeah.
whatever, in different fields. And she was asking the questions. And then she got to the science field. And she gave him a mathematical problem. And seemingly the mathematical problem, like there might be a handful of people on the planet who'd be able to solve this. And she gave him the equation, and he goes, and whatever. And he goes, yeah, okay, yeah, that's the answer. And she's like, and then she looks at the guy and she goes, like, is that right? And he's like, yeah, that's right. And he answered the question. No, okay, maybe they fed him the answer. I don't know. But if they didn't, it was very impressive looking, you know. But he stated that 2027 is the year that the ETs will expose themselves, or
Okay.
sorry, disclose themselves,
Yes.
not expose themselves, disclose themselves. And that John Ramirez, I don't know if you've ever come across him. He's an ex-CIA remote viewer. Now
Oh,
again, he's ex-CIA, so I wouldn't trust him as far as I throw him. But he stated that 2027 is the year that the ETs will disclose themselves.
well, I mean, things are ramping up, so I wouldn't be surprised, you know.
I,
I really,
I think so too. It to me, and I've said this before, it feels like a ramp up
yeah.
to disclosure. Like I mean, like so, 2017 was the first. The New York Times did the first article
Hmm.
on UFOs and the fighter pilots, Commander David Fravor and Ryan Graves, chasing the Tic Tac and these UFOs, the Tic Tac, the Go Fast, and the gimbal. And I'll try and link those as well. You know, so that was the first. That's the first big media outlet to ever even talk about UFOs or ETs. And arguably, the New York Times is probably the biggest paper in the world.
Yeah.
So then after that, and again, according to Daniel Sheehan, after the New York Times just, it printed that article, we went through a 7-year planned controlled disclosure. And we were being drip fed, and drip fed, and drip fed, and drip fed, and drip fed, little bits all the time. And then whistleblowers started to come out. Like your man David Grosh and that, I won't say what, Lou Elizondo. And these boys. So some of these, what the people have to understand, 90% of what you read on the internet is bull. And if these, I think David Grosh is okay. I think he's one of the good guys. But generally and the two fighter pilots, Ryan Graves and Commander David Fravor, they're just pilots, and you can tell, like, when that David Fravor talks about it, he did a podcast on Joe Rogan. And when he's talking, like, this guy's very honourable. He's very, he's just very honest. He just has that air about him. You can tell this guy, he doesn't bullshit. Everything is very precise. He's extremely intelligent guy. I mean, he's talking about aeronautics and G forces and speed. Like, he's extremely intelligent. This guy isn't. This guy didn't make this up. He's not bullshit. You just know by him. When you just know by somebody that they're absolutely telling the truth. So those guys would be very, very honest and very above board. But anybody who was a counterintelligence, that's what Lou Elizondo was. He was one of their top counterintelligence spies.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah.
The likes of him, or anyone high up in the military, if they're, and especially if you hear the word threat, the ETs are a threat and they're invading our airspace, and this word, I'd love to box one of them when I hear that they're flying in our space with impunity. In other words, they're not being punished.
Yeah.
Who wrote your name in the sky?
Yeah.
Chances are they've been here before we have. Who are you to say that sky is yours? Do you know what
exactly.
I mean? Yeah. And when you hear threat or impunity or any kind of negativity, the only two things you should be hearing from people is either good, positive, or I don't know.
Or I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
They're the only two things you should be hearing. And if you use your common sense, if they wanted to do us harm, it'd be done.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't be visiting millions of people like me and Sandy.
Yeah. I do. I do. I have to humor myself most of the time, Howard, because I'd be like, I bet they're up there laughing their nuts off at us, and just be like, would you listen to them humans?
Well, they're laughing at me, like, and I would be, and I mean, I'd literally be fucking them blind, and like, they obviously don't mind blue language because they keep coming back, or else they find me very funny. I don't know. Even though I don't think I'm that funny, but when I'm effing and blinding and spitting, they're probably laughing their leg off at me, But there's something, and I did ask for it, I did ask for the connection, and I got it, and I'm glad I did. It's as I say, it's changed my life for the better in so many ways, and I do feel privileged, But you're right what you said earlier. Any of these people that are all over the TV or all over the internet, and I'm this and that, if you hear that, they're bullshit artists, and that's actually something that that's the main thing that puts me off Bashar. Actually, he's making too much money off it, and do you know what I mean? He's just if you want to help people, help. Like, it's different. Okay, like, it is what he's doing for a living, but he's made a very professional living off it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's doing a bit better than paying the bills.
Yeah, I think if you are genuinely like channeling a higher conscious being, I think you should have a lot more integrity. And you should be very congruent, which we've seen with a lot of these performative gurus and channelers that's not the case. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, there really are some strange ones out there. And as I say, like I mean, I trust you implicitly. I know you're such an honest person, and you're an amazing person, and like just like the stuff that's happened to you has just been incredible. You know, one of the few people who I put my trust in would be well, besides yourself, Dr. Stephen Greer. I do, I don't particularly like the guy, especially lately, kind of the path he's gone down, but he's 100% right. No matter what you say about him, whether you like him or hate him or love him, he's 100% right. Anything he said has never been able to be disproved, and he's been blowing this trumpet for 35 years. He's been saying it when no one was saying it. You know,
Yeah.
Dolores Cannon, as I say, some of the stuff I just find, are you familiar with her,
I
Dolores
have,
Cannon?
yeah, I've seen some of her documentaries or videos. Some of it, yes, I'm like, I can really connect with that. Um, and other things, I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right for me.
Okay,
And that's how I gauge everything.
yeah,
If it is good for me, I'm on a level, I'm obviously on it. But if something kind of doesn't quite sit with me, I won't dismiss it, but I'll just like, I'll get back to that later. It might land at another time and space. But if something really turns my stomach, I'm like, no, And there
yeah.
has been things, you know.
Like what she says about the ETs and consciousness and them being able to block people's consciousness if they don't want you to see them, and
Yes.
the telepathy, and when they take people, usually they're curing cancer, or they might take a mother and a granddaughter, and they'll test the DNA down through the generations. As they said, we've done so much damage to ourselves with the poisons and the toxins and pollution and steroids and alcohol and drugs and everything else. They're trying to undo an awful lot of that, you know,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. And excuse me, the way they take people, you know, like one of the questions she asked is, okay, when you take people, do you take them out of the car and bring them up into the ship? And they said, well, we can do that, but that, if we do that and then we leave the car on the highway, and then it's abandoned, and then a police officer comes, and that creates another problem.
Yeah.
So they said usually we take car and all up into the craft. And it's like, do people not see a floating car flying up into a spaceship? And they said, well, they do, but we make it so they don't remember.
Wow.
And I physically seen that. Do you remember I told
Yeah.
you about the triangle I saw on the motorway? And literally, I'm sitting there looking at it. It's like 40 feet away from me, and cars are new, and I'm like, I'm looking at the cars going by, and I'm like, why is nobody stopping? It's right there. You can't but see it.
Yeah.
You know, so when she said that, then, and I wondered that for a few weeks. Why was nobody stopping? Why was I the only one? And then she said that about the consciousness and about them being able to either block it or make it so you don't remember. I said, that's exactly what they did on the motorway.
Yeah.
You know, and I have a photo of it, but it's really bad. They actually wouldn't allow me. It's the one time they wouldn't allow me to video or photo them.
Just
And
them.
I opened up the panoramic sunroof. I got out of the car. I had the phone, and I was there. And like, you've seen my phone. I'm good with the phone. And I was like, and then I put and I could not press the record button on the phone. And I was like, oh, come on. And I just, yeah, no, they're not letting me. I put the phone down, and then silently it just moved over to the side, and then went off. And the whole time I was trying to press the button, and then eventually I got this really crappy photo, and you could just see kind of three blurred lights. I wouldn't even put it up. It's not, it could be anything.
Dirty.
But that was one of the few times they wouldn't let me photo them or video them. I think maybe because it was so close. Like it was so, it was right there. I don't know. I don't know. Was that it? If I distributed it on the internet, it would have broken the internet or what? I don't know. But they wouldn't let me take. They just wouldn't. So that was
It
one.
could have around it as well because the fact that it was so close to you, it could have a field around it, and it maybe
Maybe.
electronically was doing something. Do you know what I mean? It's like in here, when I remember saying to Terry, I said, Terry, there's something wrong with my speakers. They keep going static, or I keep getting noises or hearing voices, and he was like, Sandy, there's nothing wrong with the speakers. Then I realized they're talking through the speakers, and a load of people have heard them in this room. Do you know? So,
Yeah.
you know,
There's something to
it-
it. Another thing I wanted to say to you, just and um, we're nearly 2 hours in, so if you're feeling tired or anything like that, or if you want to keep going, either way, I'm fine. But you were saying about oh God, it's gone again. You were saying about oh no, it's gone. Sorry, I had a thought there, and it was something that you said to me, and I said, oh yeah, that's anyway. It might come back to me in a minute. Sorry, I can't think of it. Have you any other? You've and with your permission, I'll put up those photos that you sent me. The woods, those like, do you? So you because that was one of the questions actually. I was going to ask you: were they trans-dimensional beings, interdimensional beings, or were they ETs
In the photos,
in the photos? Yeah, in the woods.
I think they were, yeah, the first one he said, the trans
The,
interdimensional.
interdimensional beings. Yeah, because like this, it seemingly there's four types, right? So you have extraterrestrials. So they're people coming from other planets, possibly other galaxies. Okay. Um, Now, to quote Stephen Greer, if they're coming here, whether they're they have to be transdimensional to get here. So the
Yeah,
ETs are transversing through dimensions to get here. And
yes.
again, I photographed this and I videoed it. So you see, and even when I put up the video, the one I was talking about earlier on with the orbs appearing and disappearing, that's when they
Mhm.
appear, they're here. When they disappear, they're coming out of our dimension into another.
Yes,
But that's how
yes.
they travel. So the craft, you might have a solid craft, and then the frequency of the craft, it vibrates. You don't see the craft vibrating, but it vibrates at such a high level that eventually the craft turns into light. And
Yes.
I've got photos and videos of that, and I'll
Yeah.
put them up. And you see the craft turn into light, and then it just disappears. So
Yeah.
they're popping out of our dimension into another dimension. And then when they pop back in again, they could be 60 billion light years away. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
it's,
definitely.
it's,
Yeah.
it's instantaneous. Like that's how they travel. So they're extraterrestrials. Then you have the intraterrestrials. They're ETs living here on Earth. So as you mentioned, under the
Yeah.
ground, that Congressman Tim Burchett. I can't stand politicians. Tim, shout out to you. You're the only politician I like. Fair play to you, boy. So he mentioned several times over the last few weeks. He said we're aware of at least 5 or 6 bases, deep underwater bases that they have in the deepest parts of the ocean.
Yeah.
So they're under the earth, they're in the ocean, they're up in very high secluded mountainous regions that you just you're impenetrable. You can't, you couldn't even fly over them, like the weather's so bad.
Yeah.
You couldn't climb them. So obviously they don't want you knocking on the front door. You know,
Yeah.
um, so they're the intraterrestrials. They're the ones living here.
Okay.
So extraterrestrials, intraterrestrials. Then you have interdimensional beings.
Hmm.
Now these are beings that don't need craft to traverse from one dimension to another. So they're either using their own abilities to get here from other dimensions, or
Yes.
they're coming in through portals that already exist on Earth. And seemingly there's portals all over the world, in different parts of
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah. One of the pictures that I have, it looks like there's a big green vortex. Because the pictures I showed you and the
Yeah.
changes, if you want. And if you zoom in, you can see the heads of them looking out.
All right.
And
I don't know. I've seen that one. I know you sent me 3 or 4. Will you send that one to me again? And if you have any other really cool photos, please send them on. And I'm sure people will be fascinated to see them. Like I'm fascinated to see them. And the ones you have sent me are incredible. You know.
yeah,
Uh, but these trans-dimensional beings are either using portals to get here, or they have an ability themselves to transverse from dimension to dimension. Now, seemingly, some of these beings are good, and some of them are not so good, you
it's
know.
good. Yeah.
But they're not extraterrestrials, and
No.
all of these things just gets lumped into the one UFOET pot, and they're not. The extraterrestrials are something completely different. They do traverse dimensions to get here, but they're not from another dimension. They're from our existence. you know.
Yes.
So you've extraterrestrials, interterrestrials, transdimensional beings, and seemingly the black military has purposely brought in. They've gone to dimensions and they've found evil animals, aggressive, say like something like the equivalent of a lion or bigger, but
Yeah.
scary looking, big black
Yeah.
tentacles, whatever, something really alien looking, but something like a lion that if he sees you, he'll eat you, you know.
Yeah.
And they've brought them in through their own technology from another dimension, and they've put them running around like place like South America. The chupacabra is one. I
Yes.
don't know if you've heard of that, and seem like and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody in South America, but seemingly, you know, in some parts of South America, they wouldn't be as highly educated as, you know, the Western world, America, Ireland, Europe, whatever. You know, they wouldn't have the same level of education, and they'd be simpler people. And they see these things and they're just like, oh, ghost or ET or whatever. They don't know what it is, you know.
Yeah.
And seemingly, they've let a few of them loose and they've killed people, like, you know. But and then they either put them back again or come and get them or whatever they do. But then they seem to disappear. But the locals, I think it was in Brazil. It's either Brazil or Argentina, somewhere in Central America. But anyway, I think it was Brazil. A few of the locals, this thing had killed, the chupacabra had killed a few of the locals, and the locals got a gang together, whatever, 10 or 20 or 30 guys with guns, and they shot it. They actually killed it, and they brought it to the local vet, right? And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, men from black appeared in the black suits. Oh yeah, we're taking this. They took it away, you know, threatened them, probably paid them and threatened them, said we were never here and this never happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the black military have seemingly done that, and I know I've heard that from very credible sources who would be close to the military. I've heard that I'd be certain that is true. I have heard it a lot, but I've heard it from very credible sources that I don't think I should mention who they are, but
Right.
yeah, you know. And then the last one is future humans. So this is recent enough. This is only in the last number of years, last 4 or 5 or 6 years, that the future human prospect has kind of surfaced. And you're aware of Rendlesham Forest. So in Rendlesham Forest, there's two forests. Capel Green is on one side, and Rendlesham Forest is on the other. And in the military, I just said in Norfolk in England or somewhere in England anyway. If you Google Rendlesham Forest, this case is very well documented. But there's a military base in between the two forests. Okay, and I think it was 1980. It was December like 20. I think it was the 24th, 5th, and 6th of December or something like that. It was just around Christmas. But they had 3 nights of orbs appearing and craft appearing and lights and all that. All the locals saw it. The local police officers saw it. The local press saw it. The military who were there saw it, right? And initially they tried to suppress it, but so many people saw it and it was documented so well that they couldn't. They had to come out and admit it. And there was an officer, James Pendleton. So it was going on for 3 nights, and then on the third night, that's when kind of the real exciting stuff happened. And on the third night, a tetrahedral craft landed down into Rendlesham Forest. Okay, now the military base in between these two forests, whatever the name of the military base is, it was the first and most westerly secret nuclear base that the Americans had back in 1980. And seemingly, if the Russians knew that this base existed at that time, there would have been World War Three. You know,
Okay.
so it was really top secret. You know, but anyway, when all the lights happened, and then a craft landed in Rendlesham, and then another craft landed in the other forest, Capel Green, right, or the other clearing, whatever. Anyway, one is Rendlesham, the other is Capel Green. 2 craft landed. So this Jim Pendleton went into Rendlesham Forest with a couple of lads, a couple of other soldiers. You know, he touched the craft and he got a download. And it was all 101s, 101101001011, ones and zeros, binary code. I didn't know what it was. but seemingly it did have an ill effect on his health, whatever the energy was in the craft. And he said when he was looking at it, he said it was just perfect, and it was floating 3 or 4 feet in the air. There was no legs, there was no suspenders, and he said it was solid. When you touched it, it didn't even budge, and there was nothing underneath it. It was just suspended. And he said when I rubbed the craft this way, he said it felt like silk, and he said when I rubbed it the other way, it felt like a cat's tongue or shark
Ooh,
skin, rough, right?
yeah.
And he said the only way I could describe it was the craft felt alive.
Yes.
And I've
Yeah.
heard that on a good number of occasions. And Stephen Greer has mentioned a good few times, like some of these craft, they're biological extensions of the ETs themselves. So technically the craft they're aware and they're alive. And the ETs connect their consciousness to them, and that's how they fly. But anyway, he gets this
Interesting.
download. Sorry, yeah, he gets this download, and sorry, he doesn't know what to make of it, and he falls ill, and that's grand. And a few years later, he wrote down the ones and zeros, but a few years later, he brought it to some dude who does binary. He knows ones and zeros, and he decoded all the ones and zeros, and it turned out to be all the locations on Earth of all the megalithic sites.
Oh
And
my
as,
God.
yeah, yeah. And as Jim Pendleton, he said, I wouldn't know a one from a zero. He said, I couldn't. He said, I didn't know what that was.
Hmm.
And again, when you listen to him and when you listen to his wife, this guy is very, very honest, very admirable man. He's not lying, you know. And he said, like, I wish this thing never happened to me. He said, it's been terrible. It's ruined my life. You know, he's not. Again, you just 5 minutes after this is the guy. You just know this guy is very sincere and very honest. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and then in the other part in Capel Green, another tetrahedral craft landed, and this officer Larry Warren was sent out to this craft, and he had another one or two lads, soldiers, with him. You know,
Hmm.
now he didn't touch the craft, but three bubbles appeared out of the craft, and he said it was like, do you know the bubbles? The children blow. Through a little, through a little, through one of those little thingies, and you get these kind of bluey, metallic-y bubbles, from fairy liquid or whatever. They come out, right? So it seemed like three of these bubbles come out of the craft, and then they extended, and they extended to, well, I don't know, about 4 feet or something like that. And he said inside the bubbles, he could see what he thought was a projection
Oh.
of three non-human intelligence. That's the way he described it. He said it's the only
Wow.
way I can describe it. Three non-human intelligence. When one of them connected with him telepathically, and he said to him, "You must stop what you're doing." In other words, the nuclear weapons. You know,
Yes.
if you do not stop, he said, we will not exist, and we are your future ancestors.
Mm.
And then the bubbles sank down back in the ship, and off they went. Future humans. So, they're seemingly the four categories.
Mm.
Extraterrestrials, interterrestrials, transdimensional or interdimensional beings, and future humans. You know,
Fascinating.
but they're four different categories. They're four completely different categories.
Yeah.
Well, probably the intraterrestrials and ETs aren't. They're probably, I'm sure they're one and the same, or they belong to the same group or whatever. But the other two are completely different.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, friendly, 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 love, love, love. How bad. Um, I'm conscious, yeah, because I know you have work in the morning, and it's getting a bit late. We're 2 hours and 10 minutes into it. How are you feeling? Do you want to wrap it up, or how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up soon. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Just if you have any other cool photographs, please send them on. Is there anything else I forgot to ask you while I have you on? Because the chance of getting you on again because you're so busy, it would be, I know, extremely hard. Um, uh, I think that's it. Yeah, I mentioned the transdimensional beings. I mentioned the different types, and I asked you how you got started. The ET in your room. Yeah, I think we've covered all the cool stuff that I really wanted to cover. Um, any final thoughts? Any final words?
Any final thoughts and any final words? I think maybe the most important thing individually is that we connect to ourselves to connect to the other beings. And it's really about our lived experience. No matter what anyone says, it's what we experience and that connection that we have with whether it's nature, whether it's the elements, whether it's other people, or again, ETs. It is our lived experience, and we're here to have a human experience. Um, and so many of us are called to evolve, our consciousness. And I think the more that we evolve our consciousness, the more we draw them to our world. So,
That's amazing. That is
yeah.
amazing, and I would stand behind that 100%. I think also, excuse me. I think also, like, a lot of people, I think, run from the bad parts of themselves. You know,
Yes.
and I don't want people to think I'm a saint, or the ETs came because I'm Mother Teresa's great grandson. I'm not. You know, I've done shitty things in my life, and you know, I've my mind at times goes to dark places, and like that time that the ETs first started coming, I went through a breakup, a separation. The lady took my two kids. I was left from a really busy, loving home to dead silence. It was during COVID. My sister was immunosuppressed. I wouldn't get the vaccine, so she wouldn't let me visit her. I went through the breakup and all this heartache on my own in the house, hence the heavy drinking, right?
Yeah.
My business was going under. Then in the May before the COVID ban was lifted, I lost all my life savings in an investment scam. And while all that was going on, the ETs are visiting me.
Yeah.
You know, so there was a lot going on. And I'm not a saint, and I think I look at myself honestly, and I think if you look at the bad parts of yourself deeply, this is
Yeah.
shit, this is crap, I really don't like it, but you know what? I'm going to try and steer away from that as best I can and do as much good as I can. And that's what I try
That,
to do on a daily basis. And I think if you go out there and do that honestly, and look at the bad part, like there's nothing to be ashamed. We've all done bad stuff, and we're not going to go to the next level. We're not going to go to the next dimension, the next afterlife, the next whatever, until you've learned that lesson. You do.
exactly. And that's
Everybody does shit things, but you have to visit it. You have to look at yourself and say, okay, look, that was wrong, but I'm going to try not to do that again, and try and live your best life.
and that's the spiritual path.
Yeah. And I
That's it.
think I think if you're honest with yourself, because
Yeah.
nobody's perfect and nobody goes out there with bells and whistles on 24/7. Nobody does. So
No.
if you're honest with yourself and you're not afraid of the ETs and you're willing to be a little bit open, and you know what, just take that chance. Just jump off that bridge into the water. Just try it.
Yeah.
Anybody can connect to them. If you're honest with yourself, you're not afraid, and or you're open and you take that one step forward.
Yeah. 100%. That's
You
it.
know. Right, listen, I love you to bits. You're amazing. I'm going to let you go. And again, if you have any more seriously cool photos, please send them on. I know I'm fascinated to see them. I know the audience will be fascinated to see them. I'll try and put up all the stuff that I mentioned. I'll have to go back to the podcast here, looking at myself, and try and put up the stuff. And thank you so much for coming on. This has been so interesting. I knew it would be. I knew this would be an amazing podcast. And you're brilliant. Love you.
Oh, thank you so much, Howard. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Good night. God bless.
Good night.
Night.